Hello and welcome to this program. Today we are discussing an interesting topic which is protein regulation and stability. Before discussing protein regulation and stability in detail, let's first know its objectives. First one is inhibitors of protein synthesis, second one is regulation of translation, and third one is protein stability. Now let's start with the first objective, that is inhibitors of protein synthesis. Antibiotics are grouped together because they all have common mechanism of action. They are protein synthesis inhibitors. The drug target of these different classes of drugs often differ, however, all affect protein assembly at the ribosomal level. The different classes of antibiotics that act as inhibitors of protein synthesis are as following types. First one is macrolides. Second one is aminoglycosides. Third one is tetracyclines. Fourth one is chlororamphenicol. And fifth one is streptogramins. These drugs are rarely the drugs of choice for either a particular infection or for a particular bacterial species. However, they continue to have an important role as antibacterial agents. Now the first one, macrolides. The macrolides are a family of safe bacteriostatic drugs that are generally used in the treatment of community-acquired infections. Erythromycin, which is the original agent and continues to be used in different irritations. Mechanism of action of macrolides: it binds to the 50S ribosomal subunit, reversibly blocking the binding of tRNA to the acceptor site. This blocks the translocation of the peptide chain. Mechanism of resistance of macrolides: resistance have limited the use of this class of drugs recently. Bacteria may be macrolide resistant due to a permeability barrier. Active X-flux pumps can expel the drug in gram-positive species. A single-step mutation in the 50S rRNA gene can confer high-level macrolide resistance in some species. Finally, modification of the 50S rRNA subunit decreases binding of erythromycin. Second one is aminoglycosides. The aminoglycosides are bacterial-derived agents that are used for the treatment of serious infections. They are not used as a single agent because of concerns about the emergence of resistance. In addition, they have a very narrow therapeutic toxic ratio. Mechanism of action of aminoglycosides: the primary target is 30S ribosome, causing premature chain termination and RNA codon misreading. In addition, causes leakage of the outer membrane of gram-negatives. Mechanism of resistance: the principal means of resistance is aminoglycoside modifying the enzyme. These enzymes such as adenyl transferases modify the aminoglycoside, rendering them ineffective. The genes of these enzymes are often plasmid-borne and as a result are readily transferred among different bacterial species. An addition mechanism of resistance is diminished uptake of aminoglycoside via mutation in the electrochemical gradient. Third one is tetracyclines. The tetracycline is a class of antibiotic and a large family of broad spectrum bacteriostatic agents that have a limited but important role in the antibacterial agents. The first tetracycline was the product of the soil screening program to detect antimicrobials in the 1950s. The basic structure consists of 4 fused 6 carbon rings. Mechanism of action: the primary target is the 30S ribosome, preventing the binding of amino acyl tRNA to the acceptor site on mRNA. Mechanism of resistance: The primary mechanism of resistance to tetracycline is decreasing penetration or increasing export of the drug via efflux pump. This mechanism may be plasmid mediated and also confers resistance to all members of the class. Now chloramphenicol. This drug is primarily of historical importance. However, because it continues to be used with same frequency in the developing world. It is a broad spectrum agent that is a single member of its class. It achieves high concentrations following oral administration, including in the CSF. It binds to the 50S ribosome, preventing attachment to the acceptor site on mRNA. Now streptogramins. This is the combination of two drugs derived from peristamycin. Both are protein synthesis inhibitors working at the 50S ribosome subunit. This combination is used extensively to treat resistant gram-positive infections. Now coming to the second objective, that is regulation of translation. Gene regulation can occur at three possible places in the production of an active gene product. First, the transcription of the gene can be regulated, known as transcriptional regulation. When the gene is transcribed and how much it is transcribed influences the amount of gene product that is made. Second, if the gene encodes a protein, it can be regulated at the translational level. This is known as translational regulation. How often the mRNA is translated influences the amount of gene product that is made. Third, gene products can be regulated after they are completely synthesized by either post-transcriptional mechanism. Both RNA and protein can be regulated by degradation to control how much active gene product is present. Both can also be subjected to modifications such as methylation of nucleosides in rRNA, the extensive modifications made to tRNAs, or the phosphorylation of response regulator proteins. These modifications can play important role in the function of gene product. Gene expression is regulated at multiple levels, including the translation of mRNAs into proteins. Compared to transcriptional regulation, translational control of existing mRNAs allows for more rapid changes in cellular concentration of the encoded proteins and thus can be used for maintaining homeostasis in addition to modulating more permanent changes in the cell physiology. The process of translation can be divided into initiation, elongation, termination, and ribosome recycling. Most regulation is exerted at the first stage where the AUG start codon is identified and decoded by the methonyl tRNA, which is specialized for initiation. The mechanism of start codon selection differs fundamentally between bacteria and eukaryotes. In bacteria, base pairing of the Cheyenne-Delgrino sequence located just upstream of the start codon with the complementary anti-SD sequence in the 16S rRNA recruits the 30S ribosomal subunit directly to the initiation region of the mRNA. Hence, most translational control in the bacteria involves modulating accessibility of SD sequence. In eukaryotes, by contrast, the start codon is generally identified by a scanning mechanism where the small 40S ribosomal subunit loaded with MET tRNA in a pre-initiation complex bind to the mRNA near the 50 end and scans the 50 untranslated region for AUG codon. Consequently, RNA structures that hinders the ability of ribosomes to interact with the 50 UTR in a single-stranded form or subsequently to scan the 50 UTR reduce the efficiency of initiation. The same strategy is used for mRNA-specific controlled sequence-specific RNA binding proteins or microRNA, which generally bind to the 30 UTR and recruit EIF inhibitory factors to the mRNA. Now operons and reglons. An adaptive response metabolic pathway or developmental program usually requires more than one gene. Frequently, the genes for a given process are regulated in a similar manner. Genes that need to be coordinately regulated can be located right next to each other or spread around the chromosome. An operon is a group of genes physically linked on the chromosome and under the control of same promoters. In an operon, the linked genes give rise to a single mRNA that is translated into the different gene products. This type of mRNA is called a polycistronic mRNA. Reglon is a group of genes all needed for the same process but physically located in different parts of the chromosome and containing their own promoters. In a reglon, the promoters are all regulated in the same fashion and allow for coordinate expression of necessary genes. Now coming to the last objective of this topic, that is protein stability. Protein folding is the assembly process that drives a natively synthesized protein to get a compact three-dimensional structure. The stability of protein native structure has been for a long time strictly connected with functional activity. There is an agreement that the hydrophobic effect is the main determinant of the folding process since it gives the highest negative free energy contribution that compensates for the loss of conformational entropy implied in the compaction of the structure. A bias in an amino acid composition towards hydrophobicity might play an important role in protein folding. From a thermodynamic point of view, protein folding can be viewed as a pathway in the free energy configuration landscape towards a ground state conformation. Folded and unfolded proteins are supposed to have a quite different free space landscapes, those of natively unfolded proteins being characterized by minima separated by low energy barriers. Amino acid composition might significantly affect thermodynamic stability of proteins by modulating the roughness of the free energy landscape. Protein comprises an extremely heterogeneous class of biological macromolecules. They are often unstable when not in their native environments. If certain buffer conditions are not maintained, extracted proteins may not function properly or remain soluble. Proteins can lose activity as a result of proteolysis, aggregation, and suboptimal buffer conditions. Purified proteins often need to be stored for an extended period of time while retaining their original structural integrity or activity. The extent of storage shelf life can vary for few days to more than a year and is dependent on the nature of the proteins and the storage conditions used. Understanding the basis of protein stability and structure is a problem of fundamental chemical and physical significance. In addition, such knowledge is critical for numerous biomedical applications, including but not limited to the preparations of stable protein-based therapeutics and the treatment of pathologies related to mutated, unstable proteins. To the extent that is true that the in vivo conformation of proteins is encoded entirely by the primary structure. The problem is that the number of possible protein variants is incomprehensibly large, the biophysical characterization of protein is slow, and the resulting rareness of data makes it difficult to parameterize potential functions correlating structure and sequence. However, the behavior of stable native-like proteins differ from unstructured polypeptides, and the consequences of this can be used to sort polypeptide libraries for native-like proteins. Even so, once one has sorted proteins for physical properties, one must identify those proteins. The most straightforward way to do this is to link the genotype to phenotype using a functional selection or screen. Unlike proteins, nucleic acids can be amplified and readily sequenced, allowing one to identify single selected molecule, at least in principle. Thus, the first proteins studied for stability in the library format were those for which the in vivo genetic selections were available, that is tryptophan synthetase, LAC repressor, lambda repressor. Most recently, display methods that do not require cellular function have been developed, such as phage display, ribosome display, mRNA display. These methods have largely been limited to identification of protein variants that are competent for binding to an immobilized ligand, but they allow rapid identification due to the linkage of encoding genetic material. It's all about this topic. Hope you understood it well. Thank you.